Hello, welcome to Talking the Secret Doctrine. My name is Dr. Don Franklin Shepherd, and today we will be continuing our examination of the third part of H.P. Blavatsky's first volume, The Secret Doctrine, in particular from pages 489 to 496. Once again, we will be using H.P. Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, published by Theosophical University Press, located out at Pasadena, California. So in this section, H.P. Blavatsky is examining whether light is a body or a force. And actually it's both. But in terms of it being a body and a force, it's in relation to the solar fluid. So we now know that H.P. Blavatsky has come down from the highest layer of the mundane egg, 765. She's now dealing with the fourth layer of the mundane egg, the third layer, the second layer, and the first layer. And these four layers are all tied up into what she's discussing here in the third part, the scientific part of the Secret Doctrine. She's dealing with the layers of Kama, Prana, Linga, and Stula, Stula being the physical body. Let's see what she says in the second paragraph on page 489. A phantom indeed, which can only be made apprehensible by occultism. From such scientific metaphysics to occultism, there is hardly one step. Those physicists who hold the view that the atomic constitution of matter is consistent with its penetrability need not go far out of their way to be able to account for the greatest phenomenon of occultism, now so derided by physical scientists and materialists. Cauchy's material points without extension are Leibniz's monads, and at the same time the materials out of which the gods and other invisible powers clothe themselves in bodies. So we have these four lower layers, the Kama, Prana, Linga, and Stula, and she's saying that the gods clothe themselves in these layers. So we now know the layer of the gods. The layer of the gods is the fifth layer. That is why when the Mahamanvantara of 311 trillion years comes to an end, H.P. Blavatsky writes about the gods coming to an end. Because the gods in the fifth layer disappear up into the sixth. The sixth then forms an arch that doesn't allow them to go any further in their lower natures up into the seventh principle, the great central sun. So we have a very clear reading on where the gods are in the Secret Doctrine. Let us go ahead and continue. The disintegration and reintegration of material particles without extension as a chief factor in phenomenal manifestation ought to suggest themselves very easily as a clear possibility, at any rate to those scientific minds which accept M. Cauchy's views. Now she goes on to discuss these particles, homogeneous, heterogeneous. As we're going up the layers of the mundane egg, the more differentiated becomes more unified. The heterogeneity becomes more homogeneous. This is what she writes down at the bottom of the paragraph. From this, it follows that if it pleased the author of nature simply to modify the laws according to which the atoms attract or repel each other, we might instantly see that the hardest bodies penetrating each other, the smallest of matter occupying immense spaces, or the largest masses reducing themselves to the smallest volumes, the entire universe concentrating itself, as it were, in a single point. And the single point, of course, is the third logos. Finally, in the very last paragraph, she writes, and that point, invisible on our plane of perception and matter, is quite visible to the eye of the adept who can follow and see it present on other planes. So what she's just done in this passage on 489 is lay out the entire tenfold universe. She started with those lower four, and then she said, hey, look, there's this point. And so she's drawing us back up. She starts with the atomic. The atomic technically is the physical and the astral, the Stula and the Linga. But it also, in a way, can also include Prana, the third. And technically, it can also include the fourth Kama. And then so she draws us up from that, which serve as the bodies of the gods now being in the fifth layer of the mundane egg. And she says, hey, there's this point. And everything's returning to this point. So we go up to the sixth and the seventh layers of the mundane egg. And then we go back to the third logos, the great central point, as part of the great breath. It's a beautiful passage. Let's turn the page over to 493, and let's go ahead and see what she says as she continues. We're now looking at the third paragraph on page 493. This is what she writes. When an occultist speaks of Fohat, the energizing and guiding intelligence in the universal electric or vital fluid, so this intelligence technically is the fifth layer of the mundane egg. All of this vital fluid are these lower four layers of the mundane egg. He is laughed at. Withal, is now shown, neither the nature of electricity, nor of life, nor even of light are to this day understood. That is because light and consciousness, intelligence, are basically related. Consciousness is a mode. Consciousness is an aspect of light. They're intertwined. And it's this that science does not understand. She goes on. The occultist sees in the manifestation of every force in nature the action of the quality or the special characteristic of its noumenon, which noumenon is a distinct and intelligent individuality. There's the fifth layer of the gods. On the other side of the manifested mechanical universe. There's the four layers, the four lower layers of the mundane egg. Now the occultist does not deny, on the contrary, he will support the claim that light, heat, electricity, and so on are affectations of matter. To put it more clearly, matter is the condition for the manifestation of these forces or agents on this plane. So once again, she's laid out a beautiful, beautiful passage here, making sure that we understand these gods are this intelligent aspect of the mundane egg, the fifth layer, and the gods have to work through these lower four layers. That is, they have to work through the solar suns in order to express themselves fully. And let's go ahead and turn the page over to 496, where H.P. Blavatsky continues with this idea. And we'll see at the very top of the page on 496 that H.P. Blavatsky writes this. As may be found on the first pages of Book 1, occultists have nothing surely against motion. The great breath of Mr. Herbert Spencer's unknown. The great breath being the first, second, and third logos. But let's see how she brings the great breath into the mundane egg. She writes, but believing that everything on earth is the shadow of something in space, they, that is we occultists, believe in smaller breaths, which, living, intelligent, and independent of all but law, blow in every direction during manvantaric periods. And so she's used the words manvantaric periods because she's thinking of the smaller manvantaras within the great Mahamanvantara. And she's thinking of these smaller periods, specifically the solar manvantaras of a solar sun, because she's referring here in this part 3 of the first volume to the scientific aspect of the secret doctrine, which is fundamentally dealing with the fourth, the third, the second, and the first layers of the mundane egg. Now, in regards to these various great breaths that work themselves through the sevenfold layer of the mundane egg, let us go ahead and turn to T. Subaro's Notes on the Bhagavad Gita, also published by Theosophical University Press. And let's go ahead and see what T. Subaro on page 28 and 29 has to say about these small breaths. This is how Subaro writes. You must conceive, without my going through the whole process of evolution, that out of these three principles, having as their one foundation Mula Prakriti, there's the second logos, the whole manifested solar system, with all the various objects in it, has started into being. Bear in mind also that the one energy, this is Daiva Prakriti descending, which works out the whole process of evolution, is that light of the logos. Remember, light is conscious. The logos is conscious, which is diffused through all these principles and all their manifestations. It is the one light, that is the central point, the third logos, that starts with a certain definite impulse communicated by the intellectual energy of the logos and works out the whole program from the commencement to the end of evolution. That is the Mahamanvantara. If we begin our examination from the lowest organisms, it will be seen that this one light is, as it were, undifferentiated. Now when we take, for instance, the mineral kingdom, or all those objects in the cosmos which we cannot strictly call living organisms, we find this light undifferentiated. In the course of time, when we reach plant life, it becomes differentiated to a considerable extent, and organisms are formed which tend more and more towards differentiation. And when we reach animal life, we find that the differentiation is more complete, and this light, remember, consciousness, moreover, manifests itself as that consciousness. It must not be supposed that consciousness is a sort of independent entity created by this light. It is a mode or a manifestation of the light itself, which is life. By the time we reach man, this light becomes differentiated and forms the center or ego that gives rise to all the mental and physical progress that we see in the process of cosmic evolution. So it's all these little great breaths that give consciousness and intelligence to the fourfold layers of the lower part of the mundane egg. It is the light itself. It is the solar fluid as a body, as a force that gives consciousness, that gives intelligence to the physical world around us. Thank you so much. Hope that gives things for one to think about. Have a great day.